Texas has very strict seatbelt laws. I need everybody to reach down next to your seat, grab your seatbelt, buckle it up, tighten it up. Not too tight, don't cut off circulation. We don't have any seatbelts. No seatbelts. We got masks, but no seatbelts. Welcome to 2020. Yeah. How many of y'all's the first time on the duck? Alright, me too. Yeah, gotta start somewhere, huh? Ooh, that sun's bright. Bright. Alright, well, the first thing that we come to, and everybody's seen it, of course, is the Pleasure Pier. The Pleasure Pier was originally built back in the early 1940s as a recreational place for the troops and their families to come when they were stationed here on the island. They used to have a Ferris wheel out there, bumper cars. They even had a movie theater on the very end of the pier where you could watch a movie and look out over the ocean. But unfortunately, Hurricane Carla demolished the old Pleasure Pier. After that, some of you might remember the old Flagship Hotel. The Flagship came in, they built an 8-story hotel out there, the only one ever built completely over water and sand. But unfortunately, again, on Friday, September the 13th, 2008, Hurricane Ike came in and damaged the old Flagship beyond repair. Since then, Mr. Tillman Fertitta, yes, the billion-dollar buyer, the owner of the Houston Rockets, and just about half of Galveston, with the Pleasure Pier out there as you see it today. Of course, he also owns Fishtail, Chick-fil-A, Shark Shack, Joe's Crab Shack, Brick House, Sawgrass, and a lot more stuff we'll show you as we go. Well, we're going west on Seawall Boulevard. Seawall Boulevard is the only road that runs the entire length of the island. The island itself is 32 miles long and 2 miles wide. Well, we are a very old city. Believe it or not, the port of Galveston was founded in 1825, right after the war, but the city was founded in 1836, and we were the largest city in the South for several years. We're also the capital of the Republic of Texas, and there was a lot of money down here. For several years, we were the second largest income per capita city in the United States. At one time, we had about 45,000 people living here. Out of that, about 5,000 of them were millionaires. But unfortunately, all the money in the world can't stop a hurricane. On September the 8th, 1900, they had what they call the Great Storm come through here. If you can imagine 120-mile-an-hour sustained winds and 22-foot waves pretty much demolished the whole island. Over 6,000 people lost their lives. Another 3,000 were unaccounted for. It was the worst natural disaster in the history of the United States, and it still stands true to that today. But after the storm, they came in to begin rebuilding the island, and basically that's what they did. They started on this side of the island. They built it up 17 feet above sea level. Now, it does slope down continually towards the port to 3 feet above sea level on the port side. Then they began building the seawall itself. By 1905, they had 3.5 miles of the seawall built, and in 1915, they had another storm come through that was worse than the one of 1900, but since we had 3.5 miles of the seawall built, only 15 people lost their lives. So they continued the seawall out 10.5 miles. It was completed in the early 1960s. The sidewalk you see running along the side of the seawall there is the longest continuous sidewalk with no streets going across it in the world. Yeah. Also, we are a very international city, and most of you are international travelers and don't even know it. But to prove it to you, if you've ever been in one of these blue and white striped buildings here on the left, then you're an international traveler yourself. Because when you're going to that building, you're a Russian. While you're in that building, you're a Finnish. And when you're finished, you're finished. These are all international travelers. Ooh, that's pretty corny stuff right there. It sounds like it comes straight out of Oklahoma. Alright, we got a red flag on the surf today. Red caution, warning, whatever. Not a very good day to be out there. It's a little rough. But probably worse than that, there's a lot of sand in the water. You know what sand in the water means? Sand in your drawers. You go out there today, guys, you're going to get sand in your drawers. You got to rinse that out. But the other right is Guido's. Guido's is the oldest restaurant in Galveston. It was founded in 1911. Nick's is owned by the same family, and the food does come out of the same kitchen. Nick's is just a little more casual than what Guido's is. But they both serve the very best in fresh golden seafood. And yes, everything is bigger in Texas. You see the big blue crab up there on the roof? Well, that was caught right here in Galveston Bay. Oh, yeah, right. We had crabs like that out there, you probably wouldn't be worried about the sharks. You'd be running from the crabs. But you might notice all these folks on the right-hand side of the road here all took advantage of a big sale Sherwin-Williams had on all their pastel paint. Now, I mentioned the fort to you earlier. The name of the fort was called Fort Crockett. They began building it in 1907. It was completed in 1911 and decommissioned in 1957. They actually used to train World War I and II fighter pilots right here on the island. But if you look to the far right over there, you see some little brick houses. Those are the barracks where the soldiers lived when they were stationed here on the island. Now, the fort itself ran right through this area right here on about 140 acres. Most of it has been torn down now. There are a couple existing buildings on the far west end. But during World War II, they spotted German submarines out here in the Gulf about 16 miles offshore. In order to combat those submarines if they were to attack us, they built big gun emplacements that held 8 and 10-inch cannons. Now I'll show you some of those when we come to them. Fortunately, though, those big cannons were never fired in anger, but yes, they were test fired. When they test fired those big cannons, the repercussion from shooting them off broke all the windows out of all the buildings along the seawall. Yeah, we did more harm to ourselves than the war ever did. And to give you an idea how far 16 miles is, we can barely see them out there. There's a couple of oil rigs out there on the horizon. Those are 11 miles offshore, so a little bit farther than that. Now, the Parks and Wildlife have put an artificial reef out there between those two rigs to try to attract state water red snapper. And it works. I've caught them out there many, many times. Yeah. Over now. Hey, son. Well, we don't promote this as a dolphin sightseeing tour, but it does seem like everybody that comes to Galveston always want to see dolphins. How about y'all? Y'all want to see some dolphins? Yeah. Look right here on the left. There's 2 dolphins jumping up off the seawall. I know, that's a bad joke. That's the only 2 dolphins we'll see on this tour. There are dolphin tours you can take here in Galveston. I'll tell you more about those here in a few minutes. But also coming up here on the left, you see the big concrete piece jetting out from the seawall. That's one of the gun emplacements that was put there during World War II. That particular one held 8-inch cannons. And just past that, you'll see a green statue with a man's arm outstretched toward the heavens holding a woman and child. That was put there on September the 8th, 2000, the 100-year anniversary of the Great Storm. And it was donated by Frito-Lay. Way to go, Frito-Lay. But starting right here on the right at the Holiday Inn, and everything you see along the right-hand side of the road here, all the way down to the convention center down there, is all owned by Tilden Petita, even the San Luis. Well, you notice how the front of the San Luis is built up on a hill. We don't have any hills here in Galveston. We're a barrier reef island, very flat. But there used to be a gun emplacement on this end, and it was hollow underneath that hill, where you could drive a tank underground from one gun emplacement to another. One that is still here used to hold 10-inch retractable cannons, but of course now it's nothing more than a big planter box for Mr. Petita's helicopter pad. How much he paid for parking. And I told y'all we were an international city. We even have an international house of pancakes, owned by Tilden Petita, along with the Rainforest, Landry's, the Hilton, and the Convention Center. Well, it took about 3.5 years to build this convention center, but it is home to several big conventions throughout the year. One being a big cheerleading convention every summer, the other being a big Mary Kay convention. Of course, you can always tell when Mary Kay's in town because the island is overrun with big Cadillacs. But one interesting note about the convention center and the San Luis, as you probably know, Mr. Petita owns some casinos over in Louisiana. Now, there's rumors that he had that in mind when he built these buildings. They say if they legalize gambling here in Texas, he'll have up and running casinos in both of those buildings in 2 weeks. So, that's pretty quick. I think he knows something we don't know. Maybe so, maybe no. Right on the left is 61st Street Fishing Pier. So that was totally demolished during Hurricane Ike. Of course, it is rebuilt now. Even if you don't have any fishing equipment, they will ring your rod reels, sell you the bait tackle you need. They shine the lights down in the water at night because they're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's also another pier down at 91st Street. Now, it does go out a little farther into the water, and there's a good restaurant on top of that one called Jimmy's on the Pier. But one interesting note about Hurricane Ike most people don't know about is how bad the beach erosion was. If you can imagine, after Hurricane Ike, the beach from right here at 61st Street going west all the way out was gone. There wasn't no beach over there anymore, guys. No, sir. The water came all the way up to the seawall. Now, they didn't even start putting that sand back until about a year and a half after the storm. Then it took them almost 2 years to put it back. The beach dredging company ran a pipeline from the ship channel all the way down the beach. They pumped that sand in with high pressure water. Now, just this last summer, the Great Lakes Dredging Company was here adding more sand to it. They pulled it in from directly offshore. But we were glad to get that sand back and made our beaches on the east end pretty crowded for quite some time. Well, as I'm sure you know, we're on 61st Street, the main drag between I-45 and the seawall. Back in the early days of Galveston, none of this even existed. The city didn't come any farther west than 31st Street. But now they call this fast food alley. There's so many fast food restaurants on this road, your cholesterol level will go up just driving up and down the street. But you may have also noticed a lot of cemeteries here in Galveston. Well, for a town this size, we do have a lot. We got 10 to be exact. Now, it's not because we're that hard on our tourists. It's because we were the second largest immigration port in the United States, second only to Ellis Island. And it was that way all the way up until the Cuban Missile Crisis. The cemetery here on the right is a multi-denominational cemetery. You see how it is sectioned off in different sections for different denominations. And if you look hard at some of those headstones out there, a few of those names are pretty hard to read. That's because, or pronounce, because a lot of them are immigrants. But a lot of them do end in Stein and Steen and that kind of thing, too. There might be a test. We'll see who's paying attention. All right. Well, it's a beautiful day. Beautiful, beautiful. And here on the left, of course, is the Catholic Cemetery. And coming up here on the right, well, that's a little small Greek Orthodox cemetery. But you might know as we go by that one, if you want to be buried in this cemetery, you better hurry up. There's only a spot or two left for you right now to bury in. Yeah, they're dying to get into that one. Wah, wah, wah. Anybody been to Moody Garden? There you go. Take a left here at the next light. It takes you to Moody Garden and Schlitterbahn. We'll talk a lot about Moody Gardens once we get out of the water. We'll be looking right at it. Oh boy, we're stuck at the light now. Let me think. Y'all know why the cowboy went out and bought him a wiener dog? Somebody told him to get a long little doggy. Please, Blaze, I was thinking about Saturday night. Oh. We are floating. Look, Wilma, it works. How cool is that? Alrighty. Well, now we're just being propelled by a 24-inch, 48-pound solid brass propeller. All that undercarriage down there is just going along for the ride. But a little history on the old duck boat itself. This duck boat has nothing to do, of course, with the bird that goes quack quack. This duck is spelled D-U-K-W. The D is for the year it was built back in 1942. The U is for the utilitarian or amphibious use of the vehicle. And the K and the W have to do with the 2 and the 4-wheel drive. Now, they built about 21,000 of these ducks during World War II to transport troops from ship to shore. They were built at a cost of about $4,500 apiece. And they were built by the General Motors Corporation. But since they were built during World War II, and most of the men were off in war. They were primarily built by windmills. Yes, Rosie the Riveter. That's probably why they've held together so long. Now this is an original duck, but it has never seen any wartime. And we are the only duck company that takes their ducks in salt water. Everybody else is freshwater only. But most of the ducks you see in other parts of the country are replicas. The reason for that is the ducks they carried overseas during World War II, they did not bring back. They didn't know what they were going to do with them if they brought them back, and it was going to be too costly and time-consuming to do so. So after the war, what they did is they loaded them all back up on ships, drove them out the Pacific Ocean, pulled the plugs out of them, and yes, you guessed it, drove right off into the ocean. But since y'all haven't been on the duck before, y'all want to see how fast the duck boat can go on the water? Y'all be scared, will y'all be scared? Y'all be alright? Alright, y'all better hold on, I'm telling you. Alright, pedal to the metal, we going now. Yes, sir. Yeah, we moving, man. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Get that duck boat rolling. Rolling, 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 duck boat. Yeehaw! We moving. Golly. Man, oh man, oh man. Man, y'all okay back there? I know, it was a bit harrowing for me myself, but the top speed of the duck on the water is only about 6 or 8 knots. Now, since it moves so slow, it was an easy target for the enemy when it was coming to shore. So the soldiers that had to ride on these ducks thought they were sitting ducks. That's exactly where that phrase came from the soldiers that had to ride on these during World War II. Yeah. That's one common question I got asked all the time on my offshore trip. People would wonder why the water here on our beaches is usually pretty muddy and murky, but the water offshore is absolutely gorgeous. Well, there's several reasons for that, but the main reason is it's very shallow here in Galveston. You've got to go at least 100 miles offshore just to get into 100 feet of water. All those ships y'all see parked out there, they're only sitting in about 40 or 45 feet of water. Also, we're on what they call the muddy side of the Mississippi. All the silt and everything that runs down the Mississippi River is picked up by Gulf currents and is brought this way. And the Houston Ship Channel is now the busiest one in the country, so the ships do keep it pretty stirred up. But guys, there's beautiful water out there. Once you get 30 or 40 miles out, it begins to clear up. I've got a place out there I used to go to called the Flower Garden. It's about 90 miles offshore, and it sits in about 90 feet of water. But believe it or not, you can go out there, park on top of that, look down and see the bottom. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's like looking into an aquarium. But unfortunately, that pretty water does not make it to our beaches. Now, the continental shelf really drops off to 600 and 700 feet here in Galveston. It's about 120 miles due south. It is a lot closer down around Freeport. Man, oh man. Well, here on the right you see the sailboat. If you want to get away from it all or just get away from your significant other, that's a good way to do it. If you've got a boat, you're welcome to come out here anchored up. They call it mooring, and you can live out here for free. Nobody can charge you any rent because nobody owns the ocean. There is a gentleman that lives on that boat with his cat. Now, he does have a little solar panel for his electricity, and a little rowboat he goes back and forth shore on. He's got all the comforts of home out here, guys, and that cost him a dime. He actually works in that bait house down here on the end. That's really not too bad of a commute. And I bet he even got a stimulus check. What do you bet? Yeah. But here on the left, you see the little white building. That's Aunt Margie's Bait and Seafood. And Margie's carries all kinds of bait and tackle. but they also sell fresh seafood, fresh shrimp and fish. Go in there and Marty, show them your duck ticket. You'll get a 10% discount off your purchase. That is where I buy my table shrimp, guys. They've got a shrimp in there. They call it a colossal. It's about that big, $7.99 a pound, I think, and you get 10% off that. If you're looking to take some shrimp home, go right there. They'll load you up. Sure enough. Then speaking of shrimp, you see the shrimp boat Darlene here on the left. Well, if you've been on the port side, you've probably seen a lot of shrimp boats going up and down the channel. Most of the shrimp boats you see inland like that are catching bait shrimp. Well, to me, bait shrimp are perfectly edible, but most people won't eat them because they call them brownies. Now, all shrimp have iodine in them. If somebody tells you they're allergic to shrimp, guess what? They're allergic to the iodine, not the shrimp at all. Anytime you're buying shrimp, the whiter they are, the less iodine they have in them. Well, they call bait shrimp brownies because they are darker colored and they actually do have a higher iodine count to them. But I'm telling you guys, if I go fishing and I have any live bait left over, you bet I'm coming home and making a nice shrimp cocktails. Yes, sir. Throw them in that boiling water and they turn pink. I can't tell the difference. Try it out sometime. Sometime. But our forward right, the blue and white building there, well, that's the Texas Lighthouse Charity Foundation. I mentioned these folks because they do a lot of good things here. What they do is they cater to underprivileged children, kids that ordinarily would not have the opportunity to go for a boat ride or get to go out and go fishing. These guys take care of them. That middle pontoon boat has a flat deck on it. It's set up to accommodate kids in wheelchairs. They also do a lot of work with the blind kids here at the Texas Lighthouse Charity Foundation. That's a Tito. Well, it looks like we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. This turned it into a 3-hour tour. You look at skipper, come on, baby, turn, baby, turn. All right, back in 4-wheel drive we go. See, we'll get the soaked duck back up out of the water. I bet we can. Yeah. Nothing to it but to do it.
Doesn't all that algae make it slippery?
Do what?
Doesn't all that algae make it slippery? How does it get back up?
No, not. This thing's so heavy. It really don't bother it too much. By the time the front wheels are on the dry pavement, the back ones are in the algae. Well, I'll tell you out on the seawall, I'll tell you about dolphin tours. There are dolphin tours you can take out of Pier 21, and they are pretty good tours. But in my opinion, the best dolphin tour on the island is the ferry. We got a ferry that runs from Galveston over to the Bolivar Peninsula. Now, it's about a 25-minute boat ride straight up the ship channel. But guys, it really is a neat ride. You see all kinds of dolphins around the ferry landing. Plus, you get to see all the stuff in the ship channel. The big ships, concrete ships, 2 little parks. Now, there's 2 ways you can ride the ferry. The first way I recommend, you park your car on the ferry landing, just walk on the ferry and ride over and ride back. Of course, you can drive your car on the ferry if you'd like, but there's just not much to do in Bolivar once you get over there. But the best part about the ferry, guys, is it is absolutely free, and it's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you're looking for about an hour and a half of good free family fun, load them up, go to the ferry. Money back guarantee. Well, the body of water here on the right is called English Bayou. English Bayou is a man-made bayou, but it is salt water. Most of the houses you see on the shoreline over there were demolished during ice. They've all been rebuilt now. They've been stripped the apartment building in the far corner down there. But before they tore the old one completely down, they filmed a horror movie over there called The Monster. No, I haven't seen it. Should not doubt seriously that you have either. Honey, on the left is Jamal Park. Now that was Washington Park before the storm. Hurricane Ike demolished the old park. The city came in, they spent $10 million on the new one, putting in all new bulkheads, picnic areas, fishing areas. It is a great place to go fishing, or come over here late in the evening and watch the sunset. Sunset's right over the water there, and you can take some really nice pictures. Yes, sir. Well, we're going to go right here towards on to Broadway, which is the oldest road in Galveston. If you went left, everybody knows that's I-45. But I-45 is the only evacuation route off the island if we had a mandatory evacuation because of a hurricane. What they do in that case is they shut down all the inbound lanes on the causeway. They all come outbound. But I'm going to warn you guys, if you hear the storm is coming, you do need to leave way in advance. Don't think you can jump out here on the freeway the day before the storm gets here and hightail it out of here. No, sir. You probably end up riding the storm out right there on the freeway in your car. And I promise you, that's no good. The reason for that is once you get across the causeway to the mainland, the traffic backs up horrendously. It's not uncommon for it to take 6 to 8 hours to get from Galveston to Houston in an evacuation situation. So if you guys play it safe, leave early, you'll be just fine. But you might not be so fine if you're in that big building on the far left over there. That's the Criminal Justice Center. That's home to the DA's office, Sheriff's office, Police Department, Fire Department, the Post Office, and the jail. Now the jail is way down here on the east end, but they were nice enough when they built the jail. They built a nice air-conditioned covered walkway all the way from the jail to the courthouse. How convenient. But just a little reminder, guys, when you hear Galveston, please try to behave yourself. You don't want to come to Galveston on vacation and leave on probation. In the center median, you see the little oak trees here. Now, before Hurricane Ike, there was 100-year-old oak trees in all those locations. The trees were so big, they made a canopy over Broadway. It was just about like driving through a tunnel. But unfortunately, the water was too deep, and it sat here too long, and it killed all our old oak trees. But they didn't all go to waste. Some people hired artists and sculptors to come in and make statues and carvings out of the old dead tree trunks. Now, there's about 30 of them on the east side of downtown. You can get a map from the Visitors Bureau, and it tells you where they all are. It's about a 15-square-block area. But if you get the extra time, I encourage you to do so. Some of them are pretty amazing. Also, you see the shrubs with the flowers on them there in the medium? Those are the oleanders. Now, we were nicknamed the Oleander City. Why? I don't know. Because they're not native to Galveston. The first oleander was brought here from Jamaica. And I'll show you that when we get downtown. But just remember, guys, when those are in bloom like they are now, the kiddos love picking those flowers. If they do, be sure they wash their hands real good. The oleanders are poisonous. If they put their hands in their mouth, it'll make the kiddos sick. And everything about them's poisonous too, guys. The flower, the leaves, the stem, everything. They come in several different colors, so be careful with the oleanders. And here on the left is the first Lutheran church built in Texas, way back in 1859. Now, it is no longer open to Sunday services, but they hold special events, such as weddings and things in there. Now, the number one business here in Galveston, of course, is tourism. The number one employer is the University of Texas Medical Branch. The number two employer is American National Insurance. American National Insurance was founded by W.H. Moody. There's the tall white skyscraper here on the right. Built in 1971, that was the only skyscraper in Galveston for a long time until they built the new townhouses on the east end. Well, we're on 24th Street, but they also call this Mitchell Avenue, named after George Mitchell. Now, I doubt any of y'all were down here back in the 70s, early 80s, but if you were, you're probably like me. You didn't come downtown. It was rough down here, guys. No kidding. The Strand didn't even exist. All these buildings were in major disrepair. the windows out of them, roofs off of most of them. But Mr. Mitchell saw the potential of these buildings, and he pledged a bunch of money if the government would match his funds. Well, thanks to UTMB and American National Insurance for being here, the government did it. They came down here together, they started remodeling downtown, and Mr. Mitchell's the one responsible for bringing it back to what it is today. He's also the founder of the town just north of Houston called the Woodlands. Well, we are home to several big events throughout the year. Of course, we just had the Bikers Rally last weekend, and we have Dickens on the Strand in December. We have the third largest Mardi Gras in the United States in February. Here on the right is the Mardi Gras Arch that does stay up all year round. And also here on the right is the Tremont Hotel. Built in 1879 as an office building, if you can imagine during the storm in 1900, people swam up to the windows up there on the second floor, broke the windows out and swam into that building for safety. That's how high the water was down here during the storm of 1900. And that brings us to the famous Strand Street, named after the one in London, which used to also be called the Wall Street of the South. But now there is something for everybody down here. On the right is the King's Confectionery. Now that's an old-fashioned ice cream parlor, soda fountain, candy factory, coffee shop. Going to the King's and it's like taking a step back in time, except for the price. And here on the left is Sangerfest Park. Now they used to have all kinds of neat stuff going on out there. They got a big chessboard out there in the middle. They used to put big chess pieces out there, chairs, concerts. But unfortunately, it's been Corona-fied. They put all that stuff up before the lockdown and brought it back out. Shame on them. And again, if you got a sweet tooth, you're on the right. It's Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. Got some yummy stuff in there. And boy, it's pretty quiet down here today. Pretty quiet. And if you want to take a horse and carriage ride around the old historic part of downtown, they pick you up on this corner most afternoon and evening. And on the next corner here on the right, you see a black lamppost. On that lamppost is a blue piece of tape. That piece of tape is how high the water was down here on the Strand during Ike, a little over 8 feet deep. You can imagine all these buildings down here were all flooded. They had to be gutted and rebuilt. But it wasn't the first time, and unfortunately it won't be the last. And here on the left is Bruchacho. I used to just like saying the name Bruchacho, but I've gone in there and eaten a few times, and it's pretty daggum good, and I recommend it. Go in here on the right and buy a bunch of cool stuff that says so right on the sign. And as I make the turn, if you look on the right-hand corner here, you see a concrete water fountain. After the storm in 1900, Mr. Rosenberg put 16 of those around town. You'll notice the trough down the base because he made them for man and beast. And straight ahead is Pier 21, home to the Pier 21 Theater, where you can watch a documentary on the Great Storm and the famous pirate Jean Lafitte, who, as I told you, lived right here on 14th and Harborside. But as I make the turn coming up on your right, you'll see a place called the Texas Seaport Museum. If you think you know anybody that might have immigrated through Galveston back in the day, those folks can tell you. They have a record of every single one of them. Also, you see the tall mast from the tall ship Elissa. Now, that is the third oldest floating vessel in the United States. Built in 1877 as a Scottish cargo ship, it was rescued from a scrapyard in Greece in 1976 by some volunteers from here in Galveston. Brought the old girl back for rubber shirt. You're welcome to walk around on her. And yes, Tilma Petite owns Fisherman's Wharf and Willie G's. But here's something you don't ordinarily get to see. On the other side of this metal building, you kind of have to look behind us, is Tilma Petite's personal yacht. Now, it's usually not here. It's usually in Louisiana. There it is right there, guys. Now, it's called the Boardwalk. It is a pretty nice little old boat, though. It's 176 feet long. Now, it's got 12 bedrooms, 15 bathrooms, a commercial kitchen, and it only cost $76 million. Yeah, pretty nice little old boat, huh? He says when he walks on that boat, it makes him smile. I bet it does. Yeah. And of course, here on the right's cruise ship terminal. We are the fourth largest cruise ship hub in the United States. The other three, of course, are in Florida. They say that cruise ships will be back up and running the first week of January. You know, I've been making a joke about people booking a cruise now because they'll probably get a real good deal on them. And I'd say, matter of fact, they're probably going to, first cruise or two, they probably pay you to go. They probably need some lab rats. And sure enough, they're doing it. They're going to run a couple of cruises and pay people to go for lab rats to see how all their new stuff works. What a mess. All right. And if you're down here walking around, coming up here on the right, it's a pretty cool mural, but it's a great place to take some really good pictures, especially up here under the I Heart Galveston. Now here on the left is Riondo Italian Food Restaurante. That is the old original First National Bank, the first one of the South. The Safe and vault are actually still in the building. And this part of the strand down here is mainly bars. There's a little quiet down here this evening. But straight ahead is Sharon Moody Plaza. Now, most of that is office buildings, but it's also home to the Railroad Museum. They have over 30,000 pieces of railroad memorabilia there. They have an old steam locomotive and other locomotives in the back, even a caboose. There you go. They are open too. And on the far right over here next to the palm trees, you see a conductor and a railroad arm. That's two of the statues carved out of the oak trees that were killed during the storm. Man. And here on the right, you see the new townhouses. I know, big deal, but they had to delay building these for about a year. The reason for that is when they started digging up to do the groundwork on those, they dug up the burial grounds from the Karanka Indian tribe. Anybody heard of the Karanka Indians? Anybody? I hadn't either. I had to Google them. Now they describe them as giants. Believe it or not, they said they were all over 7 feet tall, even the women. Now, they were very good fishermen, so there was a lot of them here for quite some time. But they said they were a very friendly bunch. They were nomadic, but they were cannibalistic. But they only ate their enemies, people they had gone to war with. They said it gave them strength. Okay. So I guess if you know any of them, just try to stay on the good side. But if you get invited to one of their family barbecues, I'd probably stick to the potato salad. Yeah. And if you want to do one of those Segway tour thingy-doochies, they'll pick you up in this building right here on the right. They'll also give you a discount with your duck ticket. But also coming up on the right through the light is going to be the old federal building. But most notable, that's where the news anchor, Dan Rather, got his start in the broadcast business. We're right here in Galveston, Texas. He had the bright idea to come out here and do a live broadcast as the eye of Hurricane Carla came over the island. Well, he came out here by himself with a microphone and a rope, and he tied himself to the pole out there in the grass. Well, it didn't work out so well for him. They actually had to send somebody out there to rescue him and cut him loose and drag him back in and dry him off. But that's where old Dan Rather got his start, right here in Galveston. Doing something stupid about like some of them do today, I guess. Here on the right, Shrimp and Stuff is kind of a local's favorite. Their original location is on 39th and O. This is on the been here a few months now. They are real good, but if you don't want it fried, don't go there. And here on the right, City Hall. There it is right there. That's all I got to say about it. But just past City Hall, you'll see a Dalmatian. You used to be looking up at a fire hydrant, but they took it down. The Dalmatian is a carving out of the oak trees. And on the opposite left corner is the first oleander brought to Galveston from Jamaica. There it is right there. Kind of looking a little sickly. But out here in the center median, well, that's the Henry Rosenberg Heroes Monument. When Mr. Rosenberg and his wife lived here, they made millions in the banking industry, but when they passed away, they had no children. So all the money they did have, they gave to the city of Galveston. This monument was the main thing they wanted to have built in their honor. Now, the 4 plaques you see around the base of the monument there are actual battle scenes from the war itself. Victory up on top is pointing straight at the San Jacinto battlegrounds. Now, this monument was put here in May of 1900, just prior to the Great Storm. Made it through that one and all of them since then. That's a pretty tough old monument. Yeah, sure is. Pretty tough, pretty tough, pretty tough. They can do what they And speaking of tough, coming up here on the right, you see the yellow house with the white trim. Well, if you look at their front door, just to the left of it, you'll see a little black plaque. Believe it or not, that house made it through the storm of 1900. Very few of them down here did. The white one here on the opposite left corner did also. But that brings us to the housing area that they call the Silk Stocking District. Now, it's called that because they say only ladies that can afford to wear silk clothing lived in this neighborhood. Now, these houses are regulated by the Historical Society. If you want to paint your house, they have to approve the color. If you want to build a fence, it can't be over 5 feet high. It does have to be see-through. If you want to build a new home, it does have to look like the older period homes that are around it. Now, everybody minds pretty well, except for these folks here on the left. They call that the Mardi Gras house. They just can't seem to let it go. Another first used to be here on the right. That's where the first convent in Texas was built, way back in 1848. Now, there was a convent there for over 100 years, until a tornado spiked by Hurricane Carla demolished it. Unfortunately, some nuns lost their life in the storm. They're buried behind the building here, behind that black fence. They never opened it back up after the storm. But to our way forward left up there is a big yellow house with the green roof. Well, that's the old Rosenberg home. Mr. Rosenberg built that house in 1895 as a boarding house for retired and destitute women school teachers. Go ahead. Now, he built it with 30 bedrooms and 15 bathrooms in it. They used it that way all the way up until the early 70s, and then it was finally shut down. But after they shut it down, it was vacant for 30-plus years and became in major disrepair. The city almost tore it down because the street people were burning the floorboards to stay warm in the winter. But a retired couple came along and bought the house for $325,000. But they put over $2 million into restoring it back to what it looks like today, and it's not finished yet. Unfortunately, though, it is not open to the public. But that doesn't mean you might walk up there with a nice casserole and knock on the door. They might let you come in and look around. No, don't do that. People don't do that anymore, do they? That's what's wrong with the world today. Not enough casserole. Bernardo de Galvez Avenue, Avenue P, real quick, guys. That's who the island was named after. Now, he was a map maker, but he never set foot on the island. He sent his workers over here to gather the information that he needed to draw the map. They brought it back, he drew the map, they named the island after him, and the rest is history. Alrighty, as I get up here to the seawall, I want to thank everybody for riding the duck. If you enjoyed it, hope you're going to tell everybody you know. If you didn't enjoy it, just going to tell you in-laws. But if you did enjoy it, any tips are greatly appreciated. When I get up here to the seawall, I'll let the steers down in the back. We'll unload from the back of the duck first. After everybody's off, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer for you at that time. Again, thank y'all so much for riding the duck. Hope you enjoy the rest of your stay here on Galveston Island.